Hello, IT enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of My Computer Careers Get Into IT Live, where we do just that. We get into all things IT. It's always great to see you on a Friday, and it's always great to see you on a Friday during your lunch hours. So thank you for joining us today. As always, excited about the topic, and as always, more excited about the guest we get to speak with today. So we are going to dig into what's the buzz in IT. It's one of the topic areas we try to hit every 5 weeks, just to let everybody know, because there's so much happening in our industry. We kind of like to find out from experts what's going on, why it's going on, what the impact on the industry could be. So we are going to certainly dig into that a little bit. Before I introduce my guest here, I just want to say, as always, we have our comment section, and we love it when you guys jump in, ask questions, talk to each other. So feel free, please. We will certainly look at those questions and send them along to Brandon and do our best to answer those. So we love to make this an interactive discussion, and I think we will go ahead and get started. So I am joined today by Brandon Steel. Brandon, hello, by the way.
Hello.
Great to see you again. Brandon joined us, I think it was, I don't know, it's not quite a year ago, but it was a while ago when we launched.
Wow.
Yeah, it was our AI certification course launch, and Brandon was obviously spearheading that, a big part of it, and you came on to kind of talk about that a little bit. So let me give you your formal background. Some of this has changed, I'm sure. So Brandon Steel, Senior Instructor Trainer at My Computer Career. Brandon is an IT instructor with a fervor for education and empowerment. His mission, to guide, train, and watch as countless individuals unlock their potential and soar high in the IT industry. Love it. He holds several certifications and has taught over, now this says 2,000 students so far. And
that is correct.
Is that number bigger now?
Possibly, but yeah, that's definitely something to be proud of, over 2,000 students.
It is indeed. And I'm in PR, and here's how we say that, close to 3,000.
I like that even better.
You're leaning that way, nearly 3,000.
Just round it up a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so Brandon's agreed to come on, kind of last minute, by the way. I appreciate that. I didn't say thank you. And talk about some of the bigger things that have been happening. Some of this, you may know about. Some of this you may not. But Brandon's going to help us unpack it a little bit. So what do you say we dig in?
Yeah, let's dig in.
All right, let's do it. Let's start with Google. Let's start with the behemoth, Google. Lost a major antitrust lawsuit, which essentially means the U.S. District Court deemed that Google was a monopoly. And in case you were wondering, let me just give you some idea of what that looks like. Google has 91% of the global search engine market share, and cleared $305 billion in revenue in 2023 alone. So, and obviously, Google has its own verb. You Google things when you try and search. It's like when you get a Kleenex, it's not a tissue, you get a Kleenex. So do you mind telling us a little bit about this ruling, Brandon? Whatever you may know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were right on it. Google being the largest search engine on the planet with 91% of market share. What I found is interesting. Microsoft Bing, which some of us are aware of, they're at 7%, just to give some perspective of that difference between Microsoft search engine and Google.
Is Bing the second leading? Or do they have the second most market share?
No, Google Bing. I'm not sure actually, but I know it's not 91%.
No, certainly not. Yeah, I'm just wondering if they're their closest competitor in quotes. Okay.
Yeah, but it kind of makes sense though, because I always say if it's not in the Webster's dictionary yet, I'm sure it will be. Just Google it. We've put that a part of our language where it's really been an innate thing to use Google as our default search. In fact, when you ask Siri a question, it's using Google. Android default search engine is Google as well. Safari, which is the Mac internet browser, actually defaults to Google now. And even other web browsers such as Firefox, they have decided to use Google as their default. And really what this case was about was that Google has become a monopoly in terms of not allowing some of these other companies to have market share in search. And because of that, there's not a lot of competition, and a lot of businesses have to compete really, really hard to be on the top of Google's search list. And I'm sure you would know if you were to Google certain products, Google would definitely want to put their services and products at the top of the list
Right.
versus their competitors. So along with all of that, and just to give one example, Google pays Apple roughly, I think it's between 15 to 20 billion dollars annually to put their products on their iPhones and use them as their default search. And so essentially what the court reached was that Google was a monopoly, and it did things by paying a insane amount of money to these big tech companies to make sure that they were dominating not only the search industry, but even the ad server component to that as well.
That is insanity. And I'm so glad you said that, because from what I heard, that was a big part of why the government's been chasing Google for a little while, because in fact, they are paying these tech companies to be the preferred search provider on their phones. And they have the resources to do it, i.e. they're a monopoly.
Mhm.
So how do you think this is going to impact Google? And then going a little further, how do you think it's going to impact our industry?
Well, it depends because, as you know, obviously Google is going to appeal
Right.
this, and with our court system, that can be years until Google has to make major changes within the company. Google's defense to this case was that customers simply prefer their search engine as opposed to alternatives, and Google, they argued this because they have so much of our data, existing data, that it gives one of the best or better experiences for search users. And the fact is that most customers, once they have their search engine defined, they don't switch. So it's not that, in their words, it's not that Google created themselves a monopoly, but it's the users who prefer Google over other search engines. And so with that, I think at the moment it doesn't affect them at the moment, but if the ruling continues, you can see them possibly try to break up the company with that monopoly, or limit the contracts that they have with a lot of the cellular phone companies to be able to let other companies compete. So I think in the long run, it may affect them in terms of market share if they have to break up that search engine dominance that they have currently.
Got it. You're an IT guy. Do you think that argument holds? Do you agree with the fact that folks prefer Google?
I actually do. I think it happened over years for that to come, but I do believe because, with us using Google in other ways, maps, photos, we use, all of these, the Gmail, that user data is essential to really giving you those amazing searches that we get.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's a sense of security. I don't know where it comes from,
Yeah.
but we feel safe when we search Google that it's going to give us what we need and what we want. But that can also be an issue too when you're dominating that search engine. You're kind of limiting what users can actually see based on that algorithm that they keep held so secretly.
Yeah. Well, guilty as charged on this end, because I don't like to use Bing. I don't like to use any other search engines. Google's in your face. You use
Yeah,
it.
I've tried others, and it's just I keep going back.
Yeah. It feels like the old school day, kind of before Google became really popular, when you search something and just get this listserv of results. That's what it feels like when you use Bing. It just doesn't feel interactive. But again, that's what they've created. They've been smart about it. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. To Brandon's point, it sounds like it's going to. Legal experts predict it will be a year or more before the appeals even solved.
Absolutely.
And it'll probably go even further beyond. It'll go all the way to the Supreme Court. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep our eye on it. This one's probably obvious, Brandon, but I'll ask just because it's on the list here. Who's going to benefit most from the ruling if it sticks?
Ooh, well, if it sticks, I think who's going to benefit the most are going to be big tech who have been trying to push their own search engines on devices. So for example, it's really hard to compete, with an Android to say, hey, we have a better search engine or app versus Google. So I think who's going to benefit are the companies who have been effortlessly trying to compete with Google, as well as I think that the consumer may even benefit because I mean it does gives us more exposure and options
Yeah.
versus us just automatically defaulting to Google. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I'm surprised. When I ask her questions, she's like, "I'm going to go Google it."
Yeah.
No one taught her this. It's ingrained in her, and so I think when in the long run, if it does stick, maybe we'll have an opportunity to bring in other big tech search engines and give us options.
I love that insight. Love it. Really good point. All right. Why don't we jump to another pretty massive topic? And this one's been, I think, talked about a lot, but we haven't had a chance to really get into it yet here.
Mhm.
I'm guessing most people out there have heard about the CrowdStrike global outage at this point. And again, just to recap, 8.5 million Microsoft Windows computers were impacted. Depending on who you ask, it equals $5.4 billion and counting in impacts. And obviously airlines were shut down, the whole thing. For those who might not have heard, do you mind recapping what the heck happened here?
That's a lot of money.
That's a
Wow.
lot of money.
Well, let's backtrack a little bit. I think it's important to understand CrowdStrike, the software. Essentially, it's a cybersecurity software company, and this particular software, we call it, not to be too technical, endpoint protection. And we think about antivirus, preventing malware attacks, and a lot of mid-sized enterprise companies use this software to protect against cyber threats. So a lot of companies that are in healthcare, the finance industry, the airline industry, they rely on this software to have real-time insight on their devices to make sure that they're preventing cyber attacks and threats.
Got it.
Now, with that, CrowdStrike often sends updates to their subscribers or customers. And in this particular instance, one of their updates did not get along with the Windows operating system and caused the infamous, which I'm sure you heard of, Aaron, the blue screen of death.
Yes, sir. Yep. I know it well.
Yeah. And so, which is like in Windows, when it can't resolve a particular script or there's an issue with the kernel, that's his default thing to do, is just to do the blue screen of death. And because of that, because of so many users, we know with Microsoft that Windows is one of the biggest operating systems used. It really affected a lot of industries, especially the airline industry.
Yeah.
But Aaron, I got to ask you a question to see if you know this. Most airline were affected except one.
It was Southwest because they have an outdated platform, if I remember correctly.
Yes, they are using Windows 3.1.
Oh my goodness gracious! Oh my!
Yeah, Windows 3.1 came out in 1992.
Oh,
that's when we were introduced with Minesweeper. I don't know if you're familiar with that game.
I am. Yes.
Never been able to successfully win Minesweeper, but that was one of the reasons for Southwest specifically were not affected, is because they were just using a very old 1992 OS. So I don't know if that was a good thing for them, but now, I guess now they're probably considering to do some updating now that the world know that they use Windows 3.1.
They took a little bit of flack for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw someone online saying if you all have flights booked on Southwest, you might want to think about it. All right, so that kind of tells us what happened. The blue screen of death, we all know it well. But the natural follow-up is, how in the world did something like this happen?
Well, a couple of things. I like to use one of our tech terms of a single point of failure. This software, like I said, for companies, is used for threat detection, threat prevention, cybersecurity, and they install this software on thousands of devices. And so the whole point here is, if the actual software that is managing these devices have a failure. It's like a domino effect here. And so it wasn't, a lot of people speculate in the news that this was an attack, and there's really no evidence of that.
Right.
It was simply an update that went wrong, and it just affected a lot of industries. But essentially, that's what causes was a CrowdStrike update that was sent across, multiple networks and endpoint devices, and it just didn't work out. Maybe they should have tested it before they did a mass update deployment across the world. But
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It feels like they're getting a little comfortable with their process.
Absolutely. So, and a lot of people depend, or businesses, I should say, CrowdStrike is still one of the most sophisticated cybersecurity programs out there. And so we highly depend on it, including the government. So, I don't think this type of issue is going to put them out of business, but it definitely puts us in a situation where we need to ask questions and find out ways to prevent this from happening again in the future.
Got it. All right. I'm not quite clear because I don't live in the industry as much as you do on the resolution. How was it resolved? Was it resolved? And is it a long-term resolution to an issue? It sounds like it might be.
Yeah, so it's been resolving, I should say. Everything is not 100% up, but I do know CrowdStrike, they released patches and fixes for that, as well as Windows operating system did some modifications in their updates as well. In terms of how do we prevent this, I think it's really kind of a complicated process. I think from CrowdStrike perspective, I think that they need to rebuild trust with their customers, because that can affect their bottom line. I think that's important when you need to trust the program and the software that you're using in this fashion. Also think of contingency plans. I was shocked to see so many of these companies didn't have a contingency or a backup system or something in place. And so I think that this is an opportunity for those professionals to reevaluate their contingency plans, their disaster recovery plans.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the next step.
Great point. Love it. And that leads right into the next point. And I'm going to read it because I have it written down here. It really highlighted how vulnerable our technology really is.
Mm-hmm.
Tech that we rely on and to work and to live every single day. One endpoint protection vendor crashed computers around the world and caused $5 billion worth of damage.
Yeah.
I intro that to say, or to ask, is this a lingering concern of folks that are working in cybersecurity or working in IT like yourself? And is this something we're going to see again?
Good question. Actually, I think this happening proves that we need cybersecurity specialists and administrators. Nice. Because as massive as CrowdStrike is, we need people who have the knowledge and skills to be able to protect networks and devices from an enterprise level all the way down to the consumer. So I think it reminds us that IT is still well and needed in terms of cybersecurity professionals. And there's really no ultimate way to prevent this entirely because there's just so many aspects to this. So for me, it just gives us more opportunity and hopefully motivation for those who are, seeking cybersecurity careers that, this is the type of work that we do, right? Protecting networks, protecting endpoint devices to prevent these type of things from happening, because now we understand the effects that it have, right? I had a couple of family members who were stranded for 2 days in another city simply because of that one issue just caused so many other issues and logistics with the airlines. So that's kind of my thought, is that it just is a motivating thrust to continue on in cybersecurity training.
I saw Delta is suing CrowdStrike. There's a lawsuit based on all of the money that it impacted them as well, all the money it cost them. So it should be interesting to see that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the results of that as well.
Yeah. Why don't we jump back over to Google, since everybody talks about Google. In the middle of all of this happening, they very loudly, I was going to say they quietly snuck it in, but they did not. They very loudly launched the Pixel 9 phone
Mhm.
and generated all kinds of buzz around it. Um, they added Gemini AI on the device. What is Gemini AI and why are people talking about
Uh, so well, first, I'm not a fan of the Pix. Probably shouldn't say that. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that phone
it?
for some
Neither
reason.
am I. No, I don't think there are a lot of people that are, to be fair.
I tried. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But this is nothing new. Apple, they're coming out with, they have their version of AI. We see that this is important here. It's really very similar to Chat GPT, but they included a lot of their services and products within this AI engine. And, it doesn't, you not only just text, we can do images, audio, video. It makes it very versatile for other applications. And the whole idea is, I think, by putting this on their phone, maybe they can have more sales in their Pixel phone.
Right.
But yeah, it's very I like to call it like Chat GPT on steroids, and it's meant to be used in a mobile fashion. And so simply, taking a picture of something outside and being able to get a full blown report, anything you want from that photo. So it's definitely going to increase that, as well as Gemini AI is also used in the workforce, which they incorporated to increase productivity and collaboration. So, from automating tasks, improving decision making, or my favorite is what is content creation. To design visual and presentations and whatnot. So it's definitely a cool feature. I don't know as much in terms of the intricacies of it, but essentially it's Chat GPT specific to Google.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that from everything that I read, and I dug in just a little bit to see kind of the functionality and some of what they're thinking. It's going to go across all of their smart devices, all the
Yep.
way to like their Google Nest
Mhm.
thermostats.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see if they gain any kind of market share from the release of this thing. They're certainly spending a lot of money on promoting it, trying to move
Yeah.
that phone. To your point, do you think it's going to help them at all move devices?
Uh, I don't know yet, because I think right now consumers are oversaturated with AI,
Yeah,
and it's kind of like I don't know which one to use. Do I use Gemini or Bard
yeah,
or Open? You have all of these others. Microsoft have Copilot, and so I think we're just oversaturated where consumers really don't know which is the better or what to use.
yeah.
Maybe in the long run, as they develop more features of it to entice, I think they may have an opportunity to gain a little bit more market share.
Got it. That's all they need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, hey, Corey Burleson. So we see you out there. Thanks for showing up. We always see you commenting on LinkedIn. Good to have you here. Um, all right. So I don't have a bunch more to talk about. You're kind of the AI guy, obviously, and so I'm glad you were able to give us some insight on
Mhm.
Gemini and talk a little bit about that. I did want to just mention this one note. This just happened on Wednesday. The FTC finalized a rule banning fake customer reviews, including those made with AI. This is good news for consumers and brands alike, because obviously it's going to boost trustworthiness for brands. And so, literally, I think at one point, Brandon, if I remember right, Amazon went and found over 200 million fake reviews that were generated by AI that they had to scrub, and then I think they had to pay a fine for that as well.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I looked into that. I thought that was insane because I know you're an Amazon
Yeah,
Prime member.
of course, yeah,
And I know from my personal experience, oftentimes you purchase based on reviews. That is the one of the main things you use to outside of price. And so I think it's really violating trust with the customer. So I think they should have paid, honestly. But it kind of opens up a bigger issue to see if I don't
for
know
sure.
if we're going to have. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. We can hear you.
I'm curious to see if other platforms that use customer reviews, start to kind of look at their own their own data and really purge out of those AI reviews because, for a consumer, that's going to be a big deal.
And, we all do it.
Yeah.
I go through whatever it is I'm going to buy. Before I buy it, I do go take a look. If I haven't purchased something before, I go take a look at the reviews, and I make decisions a lot of the time based on those reviews. So, to know that the government's weeding out, or at least working hard to weed out some of those fake reviews, it helps me in my search. It helps me trust who I'm dealing with and who I'm buying from. And as a marketer, I think it's a very good news, certainly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We have somebody out in the chat that says incorporating AI into cell phones is a significant security and privacy issue. Certainly strengthens your comment regarding the need for cybersecurity individuals, Brandon. So excellent point. And I'm sure, Brandon, you would agree with this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's my personal concerns with AI is the ethical implications, particularly with privacy. I know, for example, you mentioned Gemini with Google. They have access to vast amount of data, and then we input data to ask it questions and give it more data. I think that's definitely a concern. So always, like, I'm an instructor. If you're going to use these AI tools, you really want to be educated, get the training, and really be knowledgeable to understand those implications, especially when you're inputting personal data or any data in that into these AI tools.
So let me ask, and we haven't talked about this, and this may be a conversation for another episode, but what's the alternative? I mean, we have all of these platforms. We have all of this information. We have to go search for things. We have to buy things. We don't have to search social media, but I'm sure a lot of people use social media. What's the, besides being safe and making sure that you're paying attention to what you're doing, you can only do that so much. Moving down the road, are we going to see more folks taking our data? Are we going to see more folks restricting those companies being able to do that?
That's a good question. My personal belief, and I'm not an expert, but I'm sure you've heard of blockchain technology. And I've been reading a lot about healthcare industries who are really putting a lot of money into this because that is one way, because they want to figure out how can we use AI to diagnose diseases, analyze medical data, and research. But the whole idea is that you're given this PHI and whatnot. With blockchain, that might be something where we may see in the future where they use that technology to be able to use AI, ask it questions, our search results and whatnot, but keep it in a way where it's not directly tied to the individual and to the user. Those types of things I think we're going to see in the future to be able to help mitigate from the customer reviews that are fake to, personal information being leaked on AI platforms. So I think blockchain may be one of those solutions for it in the future.
I love that. And I think I'm going to look and see if I can buy some stock.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Way to do it. One more quick comment here. More opportunities in IT, auditing and compliance professionals. I think that's a valid point.
Absolutely. That's actually something I'm highly interested in. I always encourage anyone to look into that if you're all of the facets of IT. But we notice a lot of these companies, when they fail in terms of data breaches, they pay a hefty dollar. And so they also spend a lot of money on auditing and compliance to ensure that their data is protected and not being leaked to the internet and to others, or your data is not being illegally sold. So there's definitely a huge industry and an opportunity in compliance and auditing in the IT industry.
Excellent point out there, LinkedIn. That's a great one.
Good one.
And back to what you were saying earlier, just reminded me, if you want to target certain industries, healthcare and education especially they're dealing with hacks and cybersecurity issues left and right. They seem to be, for one reason or the other, and I'm sure you know better than I do, very vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. What'd I miss?
I think this was great. This is a great conversation. We should go another hour.
I agree. I'm all
another half an hour.
Give us some more questions out there, folks. We could do this all day long. Yeah. Anything you want to plug, Brandon?
No, I would just say when it comes to the AI tools that you're using, educate yourself, learn how to use them properly. Um, I love AI. It's an exciting technology with many great benefits, but it can be better when you're educated on the tools and understand how they work in its proper use. That is the key. So I encourage anyone who's using AI to do that.
Excellent advice to end this thing on, folks. Everyone that's out there, go connect with Brandon. He's on LinkedIn. Brandon Steel, My Computer Career.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I always appreciate it. We'll certainly have you back. Like I said, we do this topic every 5 weeks, so we'll figure out a way to get you back on here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It's been really insightful. For everybody that joined us today, thank you again. Thank you so much. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. Next weekend, we're going to dig into some military-focused topics, and then we'll just keep this thing rolling. So can't wait to see you here Friday at noon. And Brandon, as always, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it.
You don't mind hanging around?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone.